morning everyone. It's a bright sunny day. It's just the kind of day for doing an oil and filter change outside, out of the confines of my solar lit garage. Now you may say, why do I need any form of input about doing an oil and filter change? And I would agree. I dare say everybody is very, very au fait with how to change an oil filter and how to change the oil. However, I've got my own little take on it, which you can scoff at, dismiss or take on board as you wish. So the first thing is, of course, you need a filter, which is a Marla OC 1600. Now these used to be available from my local motor factors, and they were £7, which is where I got that one from. And then I put a link in a video and found out that they've stopped dealing with Marla and can't find the equivalent. So it looks like it's paying 15 to 20 quid on eBay for a filter that should really cost £7. And it's an OC 1600. That's the first thing you need, obviously. The second thing is the thing that I've had for years, which is absolutely amazing, and it's this oil cassette. So that oil cassette slides under just about anything, and it just makes life so much easier. So it's been well used, this. You undo that, and then you put it down so the oil goes all over your tiles. That's the usual way of doing it. And you remove this thing one-handed if possible. That's the little air bit, and it really does make life so much better. They're on eBay, I think, and I think it's called an oil cassette. This particular one is a Ecotanica. What happens? Ecotanica. My word, that's a complicated name for a very simple thing, but there we go. Now then, I'm going to post several videos joined together on this so that I can crack on and do it. The other thing you need, of course, is either a socket set or a decent ring spanner. I would go for the socket set. This amazing thing I bought from Halfords about 30 years ago. Yeah, look, Halfords, amazing. It's lasted all that time. I've replaced a couple of sockets in it, but it's really made in Malaysia. Remember those days? So you need that, and underneath we know where the filter is. The filter is, let's get the angle, there it is, and underneath we've got the sump plug. However, I know you say it's simple, and it is, but I've got a little tweak which I'd like to share with you. This tweak has been approved by Ava, no less. She says it's a good idea, so if it is, she says that, it must be. There it is, nicely dripping into there. Pretty filthy actually. So I'm going to get that really, I'm going to leave it. I've warmed the engine up as you heard earlier. Just move that cassette back a bit. I've got new oil on the way apparently. I've taken a leap of faith here because my Hermes, aka Every, said that my oil was due to arrive today between 10 and 12 o'clock. Now in the days when it was called Hermes, at least that had some kind of link to some kind of messenger. I believe Hermes was Mercury, messenger of the gods with winged feet. Or was it winged shoes? At least it had some link with delivering something, a message. Now it's become Every, which I can't understand. I think it's because every parcel is late, or in my case recently, in the case of some lacquer, not delivered at all. So I think the gods would have sacked Every. Anyway, it's due today, so I've taken a leap of faith and I'm draining the oil. If it doesn't arrive, I can't use the bike. But that is fate. If I don't use the bike today, it's because I would have got knocked off it. Now this is also a useful bit of kit. It's just a little grabber for going onto the filter, and it slots on onto here. It gives just enough leverage to undo them. Some people over tighten those really. You don't need to be really cranking them on. So sometimes they get a bit tricky to remove. Now there's always the option of whacking a screwdriver through them. Not really advisable. You get oil all over the place, and if you actually shred the tin, you know, the actual metal, as your screwdriver twists round, it's a nightmare. Speaking from personal experience, of course. So I'm now going to remove that filter, and then I'm going to show you my little secret weapon. Right, well, despite having that wonderful tool, I'm afraid I had to resort to the old method of putting a hole in the side of it and a long lever in there and actually twisting it round. Now that filter that I've just removed, it felt like it had been put on by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was part of his Terminator activity. He must have been demonstrating to John Connor how strong his wrists were, because that is ridiculous. The amount of pressure that took to remove, or torque or whatever, to remove that filter, unbelievable. So it's now removed, finally. It's a bit of a mess. I'm making sure that there's no bits have come out of it, which they haven't, and you'll see that the filter housing right there, what that needs is a clean round here to clean that surface, and when the new filter goes on, smear oil on the rubber, and certainly hellfire, it doesn't need the amount of torque that I put on, that I've had to do to undo that thing. I mean, whoever put it on, ridiculous. So onwards and upwards. Right, so there's the new filter on, and you smear oil on the rubber seal, tighten it up until the rubber seal touches the crankcase, and then I've given it about 3/4 of a turn, no more than that. I mean, it's 15 to 20 Newton meters, you know. That's all I've ever done with them. I just watch it, just make sure it doesn't weep. But if you overdo the tightness, it's just pointless. Underdoing it obviously is quite disastrous. At this stage, I would say, remember to put the sump plug back in. Sounds silly, but I'm sure people have done it, where you've changed your oil, taken the sump plug out, merrily poured oil in at the other end, and not put the sump plug back in. And again, that sump plug should not be too tight. It's got a seal on it, and just monitor it for leaks afterwards. You see, with the old British bikes, in my experience, the Triumphs and the Nortons and the Royal Enfield original ones, you didn't have this problem because you never needed to change the oil, because oil dripped out of them with such alarming speed that all you did was keep playing catch up and add in fresh oil. And I did that on 3 Bonnevilles, original ones, and a Norton Commando, so there is a plus to having an engine that leaks oil everywhere. There we go. Now, the secret weapon. We've got a magnetised sump plug, we know that, for catching bits. However, I don't think we can have too many magnets. And this is where the computer hard drive comes in. Because every computer hard drive has got one of these. That is a very, very strong rare earth magnet. And it's big. And it's a lot stronger than the magnetic sump plug. These are amazing. Hello.
There we go.
Great, it's my oil.
It is, because it's quite heavier than you think, look.
Look, the oil's arrived, everyone. Great, thank you.
My best courier in the world.
Thank you, Trish from Every. I'm just making a video.
See you later.
Yeah, see you later, Trish. Look at that. And there I was saying every parcel got lost. Thank you, Trish. Brilliant. So there we go. We've got a rare earth magnet. It's in the hard drive. If you take a hard drive apart, remove the little screw star keys, you know, star screws that are on it, and open it up, you'll find one of these. They are fantastic. and they're really good. I've got one on my truck sump. I've always had them on motorbikes. They're very, very powerful. If you look here, you know, it's capable of lifting that up. So it's a lot stronger than the sump, and I always put them, there's my filter, just under the filter. You can't see it. They do get rusty a bit, the chrome plated, but they are really, really good. Now, I'm sure if I were to do an autopsy on the oil filter, you'd find a little mound of silt, metallized silt, near where that is. So yes, we've got a magnetized sump plug, but I'd like to have another line of defense, and it keeps any metallic particles in there that may be missed by the small magnet that's on the magnetized sump plug. So there you have it. It's a thing I've done for years. I've done it on my truck, I've done it on all my motorbikes. I've even got one on the rear diff of my truck. And when I last did a diff oil change, which, you know, people don't often do, but I do, there it was, a mound of, you know, gunge right where the magnet was. So I think it's worth doing. So there is a good reuse of a computer hard drive. So as you saw, the oil's just arrived, so I'll crack on with that now. Right, that's just a little spin to check the oil pressure light's gone out. It's obviously got to fill that filter. So it's now a case of checking the window, which has obviously gone down a lot because it's filled that filter up, and double checking. Another obvious point, which again I'm sure many experienced people will, you know, huff and puff about, but it's, you know, it's a point worth bearing in mind if you're going to be doing this and you're not that experienced. It's not a difficult job. Is use a clean filter funnel, because it's so easy to leave one of these dangling in your shed somewhere and dust settles on it and flies and dirt and all sorts, and then you just grab the funnel and pour it in, and all that stuff goes in and contaminates your oil. So again, it's obvious to the old timers and some of the young timers here, but it's a point that I always bear in mind. I always give the funnel a good wipe and down the spout of it too, just to make sure there's, you know, you didn't drop a nut down it or something, or, you know, there's a screw in there out of your toolbox. You never know. So I always give it a good clean. Now that level's dropped right off the window just about, so I'm going to top that up. There it is. Lovely, clean, honey golden oil. Can't beat it. I do an oil filter change on every bike I've ever had, every 2,000 miles. And some people are going to say, oh, that's far too much. It probably is. The oil and filters are comparatively cheap. So I've always done it every couple of thousand, 2.5 maybe. I drain the oil and put a new filter on for all it costs. If you're going to keep a bike a long time, I think it's a good thing to do. So that oil now has gone to the level it's supposed to be at. Needless to say, the bike is on a level surface, because if it isn't, if you're doing it on your side stand or something, you know, underfilling you can get away with to a certain extent. Overfilling can be quite disastrous. So if you have overfilled, either stick something, you know, siphon it out with a tube, or just undo your drain plug and let that excess oil out. So that's done now. The oil I'll put a link to. I'll put a photograph of it anyway. It's 1050. It's got a good range. It varies, I know, depending on climate, but I think 1050 is good. So there it is, oil and filter change. with my little secret magnet, which definitely works. I've looked at the sump on my truck when I took the sump off, and metal, you know, it's a ferrous sump, and there is a little mound right exactly where the magnet was, and the truck has a magnetised sump plug, so double line of defence against those nasties. So there we are. Special thanks to Trish, who turned up bang on time with the correct item, even though the tracking said delayed due to Royal Mail strike. So there we have it. Maybe every really means every parcel is now delivered on time, because we're not Royal Mail. Thank you, Trish. So there you go, have a good day. It's a good, sunny, hot day. And I'll finish by saying what I always finish with, and I genuinely mean, ride safe. Let's not become a statistic. And I'll see you again.